Sam Saraswati Namaha Namaste. This evening on page 238 we're going to discuss chapter 17. And the clarity of pure devotion said, those who neglect the procedures of the scriptures and yet perform worship endowed with faith, infused with loyalty and sincerity, is it sattva, raja, or tama? Is it light, desire, or darkness? That's a pretty good question. If you have faith and you don't want to study the scriptures, you just do your puja anyway, any old way you feel it, is it sattvic, is it rajasic, or is it tamasic? And the respected Supreme Divinity said, the intrinsic nature of faith for those who wear bodies is of three kinds. Sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic. It's of light, it's of desire, or darkness. Listen. Faith is the form of the true being of all, O descendant of the light of wisdom, Arjuna. Man consists of his faith. He is what he believes in. The men of light worship the shining ones, the gods. The men of desires worship the lords of wealth and those who pursue selfishness. And the people of darkness worship disembodied spirits and the multitude of others. Men who perform not in accordance with the scriptures, united with hypocrisy and egotism, are attached by the strength of their desires. Even those people who torture the elements of their body, unconscious of me, know that their objective is a force of division. So if you're doing tamasic sadhana and you're injuring your own body and you're not in harmony with the gods, you're not illuminating light, you're using your willpower to distinguish yourself as an individual, as a force of division. The food of all, the sacrifice of all, the austerity, the giving, are all also of three kinds. Listen to their distinctions. Pure people will love food which is tasty, mild, substantial, and agreeable, and is conducive to life, purity, strength, freedom from disease, and gives pleasure. Those of the quality of desire prefer foods which are bitter, sour, salty, too hot, pungent, dry, burning, which produce pain, grief, and poor health. Here is an example, the chili eater. Beings who of darkness like food which is stale, without taste, putrid or rotten, which is left over and is impure. The sacrifice which is offered without a desire for fruit, observing scriptural procedures with the mind concentrated in the offering, that is an offering of light. That's sattvic. O best of descendants of the light of wisdom, Arjuna, that sacrifice which is offered seeking for fruit, or even for the purpose of ostentation, look at me, know that to be of the quality of desire. That's rajas. That sacrifice is said to be of the quality of darkness, which is performed without scriptural procedure, without distribution of food, without mantras, without gifts of appreciation, and which is devoid of faith. That's pretty tamasic to me. The worship of the gods, the twice-born knowers of wisdom, the guru and the wise. Purity, the purification of knowledge, moving continuously with God, causing injury to no embodied beings, these are called spiritual austerities. This is tapasya. The worship of the gods and the Brahmins, all the knowers of wisdom, respecting all the teachers, anybody who can give us any information about what we should do correctly. The guru and the wise, the purity, the purification of knowledge, moving continuously with God, causing injury to no embodied being. These are called spiritual austerities. Speech which does not cause excitement, which is truthful, pleasant, and beneficial, which reflects the practice of an individual's course of study, is called the austerity of speech. That leaves us out. We excite everyone. A consecrated mind, gentleness, silence, belonging to your own soul, completely pure attitude. This is called the austerity of the mind. The three kinds of austerities practiced by men with the highest faith without desire for fruit are said to be in union with light. Well, let's see what he said here in the footnote. Let's go back here on page 243, and then we're going to go to footnotes. And it's number 11. Oh, there is no 11. Maybe there is. Surrender of the body, mind, and soul. Okay, anybody could have told us that. Hello? That worked pretty well. Now, we were at the footnote. The three kinds of austerities practiced by men with the highest faith without desire for fruit are said to be in union with light, and they are talking about the sacrifice of the body and the mind and the soul. The austerity which is practiced with ostentation for the purpose of attaining respect, honor, or reverence, which is inconsistent and transitory, that is called of the quality of desire. And that austerity which is practiced with a foolish idea, even torturing one's own soul for the purpose of causing injury to others, that is declared as the quality of darkness. That gift which is given to a worthy recipient at the right place at the right time because of the privilege of giving without expectation of return is remembered as the quality of light. That gift which is given reluctantly with a specific motivation and an expectation to receive some fruit again in return, that gift is remembered as of the quality of desire. That gift given to unworthy recipients without respect in the wrong place at the wrong time with insult is declared to be of the quality of darkness. Om Tat Sat. The infinite beyond conception, Om, that is the truth, is the three-syllable declaration remembering supreme divinity. By that utterance, those who know supreme divinity, supreme wisdom, and sacrifice were originally created. Therefore, those who speak of divinity always begin all acts of sacrifice, giving, and austerity, saying, Om, as spoken of in the scriptures. Those who desire liberation, performing various acts of sacrifice and austerity, and acts of giving without coveting fruit, while saying Tat. And the word Sat is used, O son of she, who excels Arjuna in the attitude of truth, in the attitude of pure efficiency, and is also used for auspicious actions. Sat is also proclaimed in connection with consistency in sacrifice, austerity, or giving, and also in actions for that purpose. Every sankalpa begins with Vishnu, Om Tat Sat. We want to say, Om, the infinite beyond conception, Tat, that is Sat, truth. That is true, Om, that is truth. And here you go. Whatever I'm giving you, whatever I'm offering to God, whatever I'm making as a sankalpa, This is the utterance with which I want to give. This is the utterance with which I want to receive. This is the mind and the bhavana, the attitude with which we declare the purity of all actions. Whatever austerity is practiced or performed or offered or given without faith is called asat, untrue, unreal, without value here or in the future. Om.
Thank you.
Om Sam Saraswati
Very
Namaha.
nice.
Very nice. There are three qualities of nature, Sattva, Raja, and Tama. Sattva is the quality of light. It seeks to purify myself because of illumination. I want to learn more. I want more wisdom. I want to share more. I want to create the environment conducive to relinquishing attachment to my ego. Rajas is the energy of desire, and it says, I want something more for me and for mine, and I got to take care of me and my responsibilities, and I come first. And Tamaguna says, I'd like to pull someone down so I can climb up. The only way to get ahead is to make an empty space up on top. So if I pull someone down, then I can start climbing a little higher. So I seek to injure other people for my own benefit. I mean, if there's all the spaces are full at the top, there's no room for me. The only way I could climb is to pull someone down. That's the nature of tamas. Now, all creation is comprised of the three gunas. Everything we eat, everything we see, everything we think, everything we desire for the purposes of the three gunas. Even our sadhana is performed with the three gunas in mind. That is the motivation, that is the impetus for our action. That's what mandates what kind of action we do. We do sadhana, we talked about the various siddhis in the Siddha Kunjika Stotram of the Chandipat. We talked about Vashikara and Uchatana and various means of bringing control, greater control into our lives. Now, we may say from the point of view of sattva, I want to control myself so I don't get into trouble again. We may say from the point of view of rajas, I want to control the environment and the circumstances so I can manipulate to get the best advantage I possibly can for myself. And from the point of view of tamas, we may say, I want to control because I want to cause injury to my enemies. We see armies around the world today even saying, God is on our side and I want the destruction of my enemies. I don't want to destroy the enmity. I want to destroy the enemy. I'm right. And I'll get more for myself. These are different attitudes, and these are different natures, and they are inherent with every being of civilization who has come into manifestation. The only difference is people of sattva have controlled their rajas and their tamas, and they seek to illuminate the light. They seek the greater harmony of the all, because they know if my soul is everywhere, if I bring you to a greater state of perfection, then I live in greater peace. They have that understanding. People of rajas say, well, if there's a rat race and I'm one of the rats, and so I'm going to get the best I can for me and I don't have to share. I know that if someone else got it, they wouldn't share it with me, so why should I share it with them? I'm just going to get the most I can for myself. And the sadhana of tamas says, I know that I want to injure those who might possibly injure me. So I believe in preemptive strikes. He might get the bomb, and therefore we should bomb them before they even think of getting the bomb. little bit tamasic. But still, it is a valid philosophy under which we are all living all the time. So there are three attitudes of nature, three qualities of nature, and these three qualities of nature are inherent within every atom, in every manifested being, from Brahma to a blade of grass. And now we sadhus get to choose where we want to live. How we want to live. What will be the predominant occupation of our energy, of our attention? Kasmai devaya havisha vidmeha. To which deity should we offer our respect and attention? Which form of divinity? What do I want to concentrate on? What do I want to focus on? Do I want to focus on injuring my enemies, or do I want to focus on being one with the light? Do I want to focus on getting more for me, or do I want to focus on how can we share the resources most amicably? These are all considerations which every individual who's fighting the battle, everyone who comes to the Mahabharata, everyone who comes to the Kurukshetra, that field of action, every one of us has to make that determination for ourselves. No way we can allow it to be imposed upon us by others. Every one of us, whether we pick up a fountain pen or a gun, we are making that decision every time we go to the battlefield. Let's see if there are any questions. Om Sam Saraswati Namaha.
We have a question from Sadatmananda in Washington.
Namaste, Sadatmananda.
Namaste. Last night, you mentioned that Bhishma's dharma in the battle was built on a selfish promise or desire. Drona also had a similar situation. This puts me into confusion as to the definition of dharma. Aren't they displaying adharma rather than dharma? How can one person's adharma be another person's dharma? Guruji, please dispel my darkness as to what is dharma and what is adharma.
Dharma is the highest ideal of perfection as you define it yourself in your circumstances. Applied to your environment, applied to your circumstance, the application of truth to circumstance is wisdom, and thereby you act in accordance with your dharma. As the story unfolded, Bhishma made a promise to his father Shantanu that no matter who sits on the throne of Mathura, of Hastinapur, whoever sits on the throne of Hastinapur, he will serve that king as he would have served his own father. He will always regard the occupant of the throne as his highest dharma is to protect the occupant of the throne. So he said, I have to be true to my promise. I am Bhishma, the one of terrible vows, a very strong vow. I am completely dedicated to my vow. Actually, his name was Devavrat. And Devavrat was the vow of the gods. He was the son of Ganga and Shantanu. And he gave up his throne for Satyavati's children, because his father was in love with Satyavati. And so when Shantanu, the father, the king, he went to marry Satyavati, then the Satyavati's father said, I agree that your son won't take over the throne so long as you're on it. But what happens when you're gone? What if he takes the children born from my daughter and kills them and takes over the throne for himself? And Bhishma said, I will never take over the throne for myself. I will not become the king. Whoever is the king of Hastinapur, I will regard them as I regard my father, and I will protect them, and I will protect the kingdom, and I will not leave my body until I find that the kingdom is completely protected. That was his vow. That's how he defined his dharma, as being true to his vow. Now, it it is in opposition to our understanding that the vow of Dharma is to be true to your God, but he regarded his vow as the supreme truth to which he did not want to be untrue.
What Dronacharya did.
But Dronacharya said that I am going to become the teacher of the students of Hastinapur. And in exchange for that, I vowed to train my students to become perfect protectors of the kingdom. And I promise that I'm going to stay as a protector of the kingdom until my students cannot fully protect the kingdom. I will protect the kingdom. And that was his vow.
He's a liar.
In your perception. But in his understanding, he was being truthful to his vow. Kripacharya said, I have the vow to teach all the young princes of Hastinapur how to live with Dharma, how to live with truth, how to live with God, how to respect everybody. And until they do not respect everybody, I will take personal responsibility to maintain the respect and the religion and the Dharma of this kingdom. Yeah, I will not give up my life or my power until I find that the Dharma of this kingdom is respected. The three of them each had a vow to the kingdom and to the king and to the throne. And it was their Dharma as they defined it.
They were vowed to kingdom, but they actually did not for kingdom.
Well, if you had been there to guide them, then they would have done it properly. But what kind of a Mahabharata would we have? Look at this Kurukshetra that I'm facing right now. Every day I face a Kurukshetra. I have this battle of karma. And I have a conflict between my karma and my dharma, individually. Obviously. It's Navaratri, and I would rather be spending the day in the temple, chanting the scriptures, and studying even more. And yet I have a vow to the Devi Mandir Ashram and to Shrima that I will provide until a new generation of providers comes to provide for us. And therefore I go to my office instead of staying in the temple, and I turn on my computers and I communicate with people around the world about different projects we can do for the edification and upliftment of the Devi Mandir family. This is a Kurukshetra. The same dilemmas that Arjuna is facing on the battlefield, I am facing in my battlefield every day. I have a choice. I could just say, I'm staying in the temple. I did at times in my life, but I can't do it today. Not with a free conscience. Now, studying how Arjuna faced his dilemma on the battlefield gives me inspiration as to how I'm facing my battle on the battlefield. My Dharma, I'm defining it every day. And redefining it, and re-examining it, and then trying to determine how much is necessary for the Devi Mandir family. How much is necessary? And in that respect, I have to, you gave me a definition. I'm going to fulfill that definition. Yes, please.
We have a question from Nanda in San Jose.
Namaste, Nanda Ma.
How do we use the concept of the three gunas in our sadhana? Is this for understanding only, or do we consciously monitor our gunas in some way?
We do consciously monitor our motivation. We monitor our intention. We monitor our wandering minds. We keep bringing them back from dreaming about attaining the goal to focusing on the present task. We keep bringing our wandering minds, which are going out and about and strolling around the battlefield saying, gee, when we win, look at all that's going to belong to me. And then we say, okay, get back here and think about the meaning of this mantra. And where does this flower go? And how do I offer here? And what does the mantra mean? And how do I apply it? And what's the application of that knowledge to my life? We use the three gunas all throughout the day in every task. What is my intention? What is my motivation? What is my intensity of consecration? Am I fully devoted? Is my mind consecrated to the task? Or am I just peripherally involved? My mouth is making the sounds, my hands are making the actions, and my mind is elsewhere. Please.
We have a question from Julia.
Namaste, Julia Ma.
In relation to chapter 13, verse 25, still others, themselves not knowing, but having heard from others, cross beyond death by regarding what they have heard as supreme. Who would be in this category? Is it like what Ramakrishna and Sarada Devi offered some disciples?
Well, even more than that, Julia, there are many who they hear and they don't understand and they don't practice, but they have so much faith. Their faith has taken them across that ocean of worldliness. Their faith has made them whole. So the farmer was sitting in the back of the temple and the pundit was going on in Sanskrit. And the farmer got up, he started to cry. And he was crying and crying and crying. And he was just sobbing there. And he got up to leave, to hide his tears. And the pundit said, "Sit down." And he motioned to him, "Sit down." And he kept going on and on and on. And the farmer got up to leave again. And Pandit said, "Sit down, sit down." And he continued to cry. And the farmer got up a third time. He got up to leave. And the Pandit said, "Sit down, sit down." Farmer sat down and continued to cry. And after the service was over, the Pandit went up to the farmer. And he said, "Hey, farmer, you don't understand Sanskrit, do you?" "No." "Well, why were you crying?" He said, "As you were talking, I couldn't help but seeing Krishna talking to Arjuna. And it was such an emotional experience that I couldn't hold back the tears." Well, the Pandit was blobbing on and on, blabbering in Sanskrit. He never saw Krishna. But the pure, simple farmer, he saw Krishna and he couldn't hold back his emotion. That's the meaning of this verse, Julia. Verse 23 of chapter 13 is saying, if you've heard and you, even though you don't understand, but you believe and you have that faith, even still you can get the darshan. Even still you can get that feeling, that emotion, that intensity of bhavana. Yes, please.
We have a question from Monish.
Namaste, Monish.
How literal should we take the Shastras, Puranas, etc.?
It depends upon your purpose. If you want to be a historian, you want to take them very literally. If you want to be a grammarian, you want to take them very literally. If you want to be a sadhu, you want to understand the allegory and how does it apply to me in my circumstances. If you're looking to be able to give eloquent discourses in front of large audiences, then you have to take a literal interpretation. But if your purpose is to improve yourself, to change yourself, to evolve to the highest spiritual evolution that you can possibly reach to, then you want to see, how can I apply this allegory into my life so it's meaningful to me? How can I use this information for my battle, not for his battle? His battle's history. I'm not a historian. I'm interested in my battle. I'm only in this for myself, with a capital S. Yes, please.
We have a question from Swarupananda.
Namaste, Swarup.
Pranam. Is Dharma possible without the Guru? Arjuna was ready to do what he thought best, lay down his bow and not fight, until Krishna started telling him otherwise. Do we find our Dharma through the Guru?
Most of us do. And many of us never find our Dharma. We just go wandering around like a ball in a pinball machine, getting tossed, bumped from side to side, and we are continually reacting to the circumstances that are presented to us. But some of us see an example of purity and clarity and understanding, someone who has a really good plan and she's implementing it and she's living her dream. And we say, God, that's an example I want to follow. I want to reflect. I want to be like that. I want to have that same clarity, that same understanding, so I know what is too much and what is too little, and where do I want to go, and how much energy can I expend in getting there. These are all valuable questions. So ultimately, it is more efficient to have a guru. But many of us don't even know that there's such a thing as a guru. We're so busy employed by the fire department. We're putting out these little fires here and there. We're reacting to circumstances that we don't even have time to think, how do I plan my life? How do I make my goal? How do I live in accordance with my plan? Where do I want to go? We don't even ask those questions. And ultimately, we get there. Yes, please.
We have a question from Ramya in Bangalore.
Namaste, Rami Mami.
Is it the action or intention in bhavana that determines which guna we are in? Are we striving to be in sattva as much as we can be?
Actually, Ramya, I think that sattva will purify us so that we could become nirgun. So it would be advisable to strive towards sattva. However, there are many times that we need all three gunas, all three qualities. Let's call them being, becoming, and rest. And if you don't have rest, in tamaguna, then you don't have rejuvenation. And you don't have distribution of nourishment. You have to be in a state of rest in order to rejuvenate. So all three gunas become necessary to us. It's just a question of how do we focus our attention. When we are in action, we want to focus attention on the action, and it is the intention with which we perform that action which motivates us to pay more attention. If I'm doing that action for myself because I want to gain something, I have one level of concentration. But if I'm doing that action for my family because I'm in love with them and I want to demonstrate to them the sincerity of my love, and this is part of my love affair, then I have another intensity of commitment. And that intensity of commitment makes me free even though I make mistakes. Although there's a tendency to make fewer mistakes when I pay attention, I'm still in love. And I'm still doing the right things for the right reasons. For the right people to be the recipients of the right actions. And that's my motivation. And I hope that the intention and the inspiration for our action will cause us to focus greater and greater attention so that we achieve higher and higher levels of efficiency and we make fewer mistakes. Yes, please.
We have a question from Jennifer.
Namaste, Jennifer, Mom.
Namaste. In chapter 16, verse 19, I throw those cruel enemies, lowest among men, in the ocean of objects and relationships for an eternity, in the impure wombs of the forces of division. There is a sense of being sentenced to impure wombs of division. Is it we sentencing ourselves by our attachments and choices, or is the divine sentencing us?
If the God we seek lives in all of us, then it's both. They're one. I am the God who's sentencing me to an eternity of roaming around the ocean of worldliness because I don't care about God. And I'm going to roam in the worldliness until I do care about God. Until I find a guru and I find an inspiration and I find an example and I find somebody who's doing something different, and then I say, oh, wake up, crazy boy. You don't belong. We're roaming around the ocean of worldliness. So it's not necessarily God is punishing me. I'm the God who is punishing me. I'm making a choice, a conscious choice. I choose selfishness. And therefore, I'm going to spend my time in the mall, roaming around the world of objects and relationships, bumping into things like a bull in a china shop, and then until I wake up and get an inspiration to do something different. And when that happens, then I'll extricate myself from the world of worldliness. I'll come to the Devi Mandir, even if it's a Tuesday night, even if I wasn't invited. I'll come and I'll sit and I'll listen to the Bhagavad Gita, and I'll do something inspiring and something that says, hey, I want to come a little closer to God. I want to remember a little more intensely. And then we start taking affirmative action to control our environment so that I have some new energy and new inspiration and new intention to make my life a little bit different. Maybe I'll start practicing puja in the morning, or I'll do a guided meditation, or I'll put flowers on the altar, or I'll light a stick of incense, or I'll light a candle. I'll do something to remember that the worldliness of the objects and the world of objects and relationships is not all there is. There's got to be something more. Yes, please, Shivan.
Swamiji, how can we give up enmity and continue to respect someone when we feel like they're not respecting us, and hold them in the highest while at the same time holding up boundaries?
That's exactly the answer. Remember in chapter 4 of the Chandi where the mother said, okay, enemies, go to heaven. I wish all of my enemies liberation. You get liberated at the hands of the Divine Mother. So when you're liberated, you won't have any more necessity to bother me or anyone else. I hold you in the highest respect. I send you to heaven with all the energy at my disposal. That's my prayer to you. I'm not saying leave me alone. I'm not saying don't bug me. I'm not saying I'm going to go to hell. I'm not saying I'm going to get you, like I'm going to cause you as much pain as you're causing me. I'm going to say, enemies, go to heaven. Get liberated. I want you to be liberated, because if you're liberated, you will no longer be in enmity with anyone. Yes? Yes, please.
We have a question from Siddhartmananda.
Yes, Siddhartmananda, namaste.
So, if somebody's ideal of perfection isn't noble or honorable, and to us would be adharma, is it still dharma? For instance, if the ideal of perfection for a thief is to steal and have stuff, how is that not adharma?
It may not be adharma to that individual thief, and who am I to judge? It's adharma to me. Now look, here we are in this battlefield. There are two opposing armies. And both sides say, I have dharma on my side, God is going to protect me. They're not saying, oh, I'm fighting for the wrong. They're saying, my battle is righteous. Everybody on the battlefield is saying, God is on my side. And actually, it's not quite possible that God is on both sides of the armies, of the opposing armies. Because God is not going to fight with herself. So they each have an individual concept of dharma, which says that God is on my side. And we view the battlefield and say, wow, they're both wrong. God's on my side. And then you understand that the concept of dharma, the ideal of perfection, is a highly personal matter. It's something that each of us has to decide according to our own conscience according to the time, place, and circumstances with which we are confronted. And that's the concept of Dharma. The highest ideal of perfection. Now, if I believe that I am fighting for the highest ideal of perfection, and I really believe it, I'm free. Even though I'm doing stupid things. I'm not bound by those actions. I'm doing them for God. And that's why the great thief, like Valmiki, could sit in the middle of the path and say, dead body, dead body, dead body, Moram, 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 and get enlightenment. Because he had no concept that I am the guilty party. Whatever I'm doing for God. Yes, please.
Is it possible for someone to act and do things that we would consider just completely horrible, and if they're convinced that it's for God, they find like that's okay, there's no karma that comes?
Look what's going on in the Middle East today. Inshallah, we'll win. We'll be in Baghdad, or we'll be in Jerusalem, or we'll be in wherever they're going. We'll destroy all the infidels if God is on our side, if God is gracious. They believe it. The fact that I don't subscribe to that philosophy is in no way going to be a deterrent to them. They say, who is Swami in California? What difference does it make what he thinks? I believe God wants me to march on Baghdad, or on Beirut, or any place else. That's their dharma. Yes, please.
We have a follow-up question from Siddhamananda.
Yes, Siddhamananda.
Are there no moral conducts to Dharma?
There are, but each of us has to adjudicate our own morality ourselves. For some people, it is appropriate to kill and maim and rape and plunder and pillage and do all these atrocities in the name of God, and they think it's appropriate. And for other people, we don't think it's appropriate. So I'm going to go out and kill and maim and plunder and pillage so that they don't do it. Yes, please.
We have a question from Elise.
Namaste, Elise.
How does one forgive their own inner enemies?
Well, we have to be as forgiving to ourselves as we want to be forgiven by others. If I don't forgive me, I can't hope that you will. So I'm going to first try to forgive my offenders, and then I'm going to try to forgive myself. And then I'm trying to forget my offense, that I've been offended. So I don't hold a grudge, because I don't want revenge and I don't want retribution. All I want is peace. So what good is the revenge or the retribution going to give me? All I want is to live in peace. But by the same token, I have a duty to stand up and say, you can't do it again. You can't make this the pattern of your behavior to create offense. So remember the snake that lived at the foot of the tree, and the sannyasis said, oh, we should all live in peace and we should all live in harmony. And the young boys who used to play near that tree said, oh, whatever that snake, he was always so ferocious, and he was always biting people and scaring people and threatening people. And let's go find him. And they went out and they looked for this snake, and they found the snake, and the snake was so docile and so humble. And they grabbed that snake and they beat him, and they gave him all kinds of torture and atrocities. And the snake crawled away and hid. And he could only come out at night because he was afraid of the boys would come and beat him some more. So he didn't find anything to eat, and he shriveled up and he became very thin. And unlike your Swamiji, who didn't become thin, some time passed, and the sannyasi came by the tree, and he said, "Where's that old snake?" And The boy said, oh, that snake died a long time ago. We haven't seen anything about it. We haven't seen or heard from him in months. And the sannyasi said, I don't think the snake could have died. I gave him a mantra and he wouldn't leave his body until he realized that mantra. So he went to the tree and he found that snake and he said, snake, you're all shriveled up and beaten up and bruised and battered and skinny and malnourished. What happened to you? And the snake said, Guruji, you told me not to injure anybody. You told me not to bite anybody. You told me not to fight with anybody. So the boys beat me up and I stopped coming out during the day. And when I came out at night, there was nothing to eat. So I got all battered and bruised and shriveled up. And the sannyasi said, yes, I told you not to kill, I told you not to steal, I told you not to injure others, but I didn't tell you not to hiss. Well, the snake realized his inappropriate interpretation of the Guru's instructions. And then he was able to instill enough fear in his oppressors that they no longer wanted to oppress him. They said, oh, the old snake is back. Then they let him free. Yes, please.
We have a question from Julia.
Yes, Julia ma, namaste.
In relation to verse 23 in this chapter,
Yes, please.
Om Tat Sat is the three-syllable declaration remembering Supreme Divinity. By that utterance, those who know Supreme Divinity, Supreme Wisdom, and Sacrifice were originally created. Can you please tell us more about this verse? Om Tat Sat created them?
Yes. When Brahma Prajapati took the Sankalpa to make a new creation and to let beings evolve into manifested existence, the first thing he said was, Om Tat Sat. I'm going to take a new creation, a sankalpa to make a new creation. Every action begins with sankalpa. Every action. It just didn't evolve on its own. It began with the sankalpa. And so Brahma said at the very dawn of creation, Om Tat Sat Adya Jambudipe. I don't think he was in America at that time.
We have a question from Moshimi in Boulder.
Namaste Moshami-man, Namaste Siddharth.
Pranam. While chanting Gita with pranayam, is it okay to use the Navarna mantra during inhalation and exhalation? Navarna mantra comes automatically. Should we do Om Klim Vishnave Namaha for inhalation for more fruitful chanting?
No, you should stay with Navarna mantra. That's your mantra, that's your mom's mantra, that's my mantra, and we become one in the Gita. Use that mantra whether you're doing the Rudra Stadhyaya, the Bhagavad Gita, the Chandi, or the Sundarkand. You can use that mantra on the inhalation of every pranayam part that you perform. That's your mantra. You have adhikar. You have authority over that mantra. Use it. You got it, flout it. And if you don't want to use that mantra, then you can use Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Or you can use any other mantra you choose, and you can choose a different mantra for every text, or for every pat, or for every sankalpa. But if you don't want to choose a different mantra, and that's the natural mantra that comes to you, then use it. It's yours. Evamasta. Yes, please.
We have a question from Nanda in San Jose.
Namaste, Nandama.
If another person is acting towards me in tamas, seeking to injure me, what guna should I act from?
Nirgun. First thing you want to do is get centered. Don't respond. Don't be conducted to their tamas. Be like the wind that picks up the scent and carries it for a distance and drops it off and says, disperse scent. I have no attachment to whatever goon that you are approaching me with. You're not going to move me from my center. I am still nirgun. Now, go into your lexicon of experience and think, what is the appropriate response? If they are coming to you from tamas, Do you want to instill the fear within them? Then you'll reply with Thomas. If you want to inspire them to greater action and greater desire, you want to come to them with Rajas. If you want to inspire them to become one with the self and one with truth and just be full of love and full of light, then you want to respond with Sattva. It depends on your circumstances and the reason for your application of this truth to circumstance. Why are you responding? I'm told that the Israeli army is bombing Gaza tonight because there were 3 young teenagers who were killed by Hamas. Now, they responded from Tamaguna. They said, we're going to instill the fear of the might of our army so that you won't like to behave like this again. It's an appropriate response, according to them. I mean, the Prime Minister got on the television internationally and he proclaimed that this will be a deterrent to you for performing such actions. Now, when the United States Army marched into Iraq and they saw all the Sunnis rising up, they called all the Sunni chieftains and said, we're conscripting you into the United States Army and we're putting you on the American payroll. And we will pay you not to attack us. That was the Petraeus doctrine. He appealed to their Rajaguna. He said, look, I can make it profitable for you not to fight with us. And he did. And he was successful. And they stopped fighting. And that was, he responded with a Rajagun. And we see in the Devi Mandir, everybody who does anything in the Devi Mandir, Sri Ma comes and hugs them and she gives them some prasad and she gives them a blessing and she brings them closer and closer into her heart. And she responds with Sattvagun. And she inspires them, please give us a little more, give us a little more. We are sharing together. Oh, these are 3 examples of responding, Nandama, from the 3 gunas. Do you want to respond with Thomas? Is it appropriate to threaten them or to bomb them? I'm going to destroy you if you try to injure us. Or is it appropriate to respond with Rajas? I'll pay you not to try. I'll pay you not to cause me harm. Or is it appropriate to respond with Sattva and say, come on in, we'll make a partnership that works for everybody, which the Shias and the Sunnis didn't like to do. And they said, no, we will be the kings, the rest will be servants. And now they have another war. And they'll fight the other war until somebody pays them off not to fight again, and when they stop paying, they'll fight again. So if you can make a partnership and you make a global partnership for peace, then we can hope for peace. And so long as people are responding from Thomas and responding from Rajas, it may be appropriate for the immediate circumstance, but it's not going to evolve a long-term solution. Not individually and not collectively. Yes, please.
We have a question from Vivekananda.
Namaste, Vivek.
How to forgive ourselves when we slip into extremes of Rajo and Tamo gunas? Guilt can be a powerful adversary.
Yes, it can. And we have to overcome that guilt and say, well, gee, what a wonderful lesson I got. Remember, all the pain is a teaching. And all the pleasure is the examination. It's easy when I hurt myself to say, oh God, take away my pain. But it's so hard when I'm enjoying myself to say, oh God, thank you so much for giving me this enjoyment. Can we remember all the time? Can you remember when you fall and you hurt yourself that God is giving you a teaching how you can remember him or her better? more efficiently, more appropriately, in more circumstances? Can you remember when you were enjoying and you're free from pain? Oh God, thank you so much for this delight. Thank you so much for this experience. So naturally you want to forgive yourself and you want to forgive others, because you know that the natural proclivity of all manifested existence is to fall into the trap of striving for self-preservation. Now you got to preserve yourself. Existentialism. I mean, you got to make sure you're there so you can enjoy it. If you're not there, how are you going to enjoy it? That's the greatest difficulty, the greatest obstacle to moving into samadhi. Wait a second, if I'm going to dissolve myself, who's going to be there to enjoy it? So I grab myself every time I'm going to go into samadhi and say, wait, stop, think this through. If you go and dissolve your ego, then how can you come back and go to the kitchen and tell everybody about it? I have to first have the faith that I can only dissolve the ego for a little bit of time, and it's going to come back. No matter how long I go for, it's going to come back. And once I realize that, and I remember that, and I know that, then it becomes easier and easier and easier to let go. I become like the wind who picks up the fragrance and carries it for a distance and lets it go. No attachment. Om Eng Ring Kling Chamundari Viche. I become the consciousness which watches the transformation of nature, dancing on the stage of consciousness according to her nature. Om Sam Saraswati Namaha. Namaste.